Right, in this part 2 of linear equations containing brackets, let's just push ourselves a little bit further and see what kind of challenges can arise when we're doing these types of equations. So first of all, in this one, we can see that we've now got a fraction being multiplied into the bracket and a fraction being multiplied into a bracket. So there's no need to panic. Remember that as soon as there's a fraction, all you really have to do is you need to divide the number, the coefficient there or the constant there, by the denominator, because a half actually means 1 divided by 2. So a half is telling us to divide by 2, and a quarter 1 divided by 4. And because the tops are ones, we don't have to worry about anything there. We just need to divide the number involved by the 2, or the number involved by the 4. So again, we need to remember that that half is going to be multiplied into both terms of the brackets. And then we also need to remember that we must look at the signs, because that's the other thing that people often make mistakes with. When they're multiplying into a bracket, they get the wrong sign. So a half of 2x basically means I'm going to divide the 2 by 2, which is 1. So I'm just left with x. Positive times negative is negative. And a half of 4 we know is 2, or we can just say 4 divided by 2, which is 2. Remember, a minus outside a bracket simply means the signs inside the bracket are going to change, because negative times positive is negative, and negative times negative is positive. There's a reason for all of these tricks that we use. You cannot just make up a trick. It has to have a mathematically sound basis that it comes from. So here's a negative being multiplied into the bracket. So immediately, let's be careful. Negative times positive is negative. And then a quarter of 4, you can probably just say a quarter of 4 is 1. If you're not sure of that, 4 divided by 4 is 1. So we're just left with x. Negative times negative is positive, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. Again, we've got a negative before the bracket, so be careful of the signs. Negative times positive, negative times negative. And that little 3x there is standing all on its own. Nothing's been done to it, so it simply remains as 3x. Right, so I've eliminated the brackets because they were uncomfortable for what we needed to do. So now I'm simply going to gather my terms. So everything that has an x in it that's already on the left-hand side, I'm just going to write down as it is. And remember now, if I'm bringing any x terms across, they're going to change their sign. So negative becomes positive, positive becomes negative, and positive becomes negative. Right? To alleviate errors, I always find if I write down what I already have on the right-hand side, then there's no confusion later on, because anything that's already there is going to simply be written down as it is. It's not changing its sign. That had a plus 3 in front of it simply because there was another term first. I don't need to write that plus 3. Negative 2 is going to come across as positive, and negative 3 is going to come across as positive. So let's look for any that are additive inverses, because then it just saves us doing too much work. So positive 2 minus positive 2x minus 2x, they disappear. So now all I need to say is x plus x is 2x. 2x minus 3x is negative x. 3 minus 4 is negative 1, plus 2 is positive 1, plus 3 is 4. I don't want to solve for negative x, I want to solve for positive x. So remember, this is an imaginary negative 1x, which means I'm going to divide by negative 1, exactly what the coefficient is, and I must do exactly the same to the other side. And so therefore, x is equal to negative 4. The shortcut that you'll use as you get used to this is, if you see that you've ended up with negative x, you're simply going to change the negative x into a positive x, and you're going to change the sign of the constant on the other side. Right, so that was how to deal with a fraction. Let's have a look now at when we've got a bracket squared. So what does 2 minus 3 all squared actually mean? If we think back to multiplying out brackets, it actually means 2x minus 3 times itself. So if we use FOIL on that, FOIL to multiply our two brackets is saying multiply the firsts, then multiply the outers, then multiply the inners, and then multiply the lasts. So we're first going to do it this way, and then I'm going to show you the shortcut for a bracket squared. If you ever forget the shortcut, then you can always do that. Unfortunately, a lot of people end up doing that, and I don't know why, because when I show you the shortcuts, it's actually not very difficult. So first, 2x times 2x is equal to 4x squared. Outers, 2x times negative 3 is negative 6x. Inners, negative 3 times 2x is negative 6x. And lasts, negative times negative is positive. 3 times 3 is 9. And then, of course, we've got two like terms here. So it's actually 4x squared minus 6 is minus 12x plus 9. So let's see now how we can get that exact same answer but using the shortcut method. So if you're doing this with the shortcut, you first of all square your first term, 4x squared, and there it is. You square your last term to get the third term of the trinomial, and remember, when you're squaring a negative, it will become positive. And then to get your middle term, you're going to use that sign, and what you're going to do is you're going to multiply that by that, and then you're going to double it, which means multiply it by 2 again. So let's try that out. 2x times negative 3 is negative 6x. Double it or times it by 2 is negative 12x. And that's exactly what we got over there. Now here I've got to square a bracket and I've got to multiply the answer by 2. So I would suggest you do 2 steps to get this out. So leave it as negative 2. And now let's use the shortcut for squaring the bracket. I'm having to put a bracket again because I still have to multiply by 2 afterwards. So square the first term, square the last term. Then to find your middle term, it's going to be that sign. And I'm going to say that times that and then double it. So x times 3 is 3x, double it is 6x. This 2x squared is just remaining as it is. It's not being multiplied by anything. 3 is being multiplied into this bracket. 3 times x is 3x. And then remember, negative times negative is positive 9. Right, we need to just write things down again so that we can get that bracket multiplied out. We don't want any brackets left so that we can go on to the steps where we start gathering terms. So multiplying 2 into this bracket is fairly simple, except that it is a negative 2, so negative times negative is positive 12x, and negative times positive is negative 18. Write the rest down. Remember, it is so important to bring things down from step to step, otherwise you lose them. I have x squareds again, which looks a bit worrying because that makes me think of quadratic equations, but let's get any form of x's onto this side and then we can see what's going on. So everything that's already on this side I'm going to write down as it is, except for the constants. Okay, anything that's an x on that side I'm going to bring across. Positive becomes negative, negative becomes positive. What have I got in constants on the right hand side? I've got a 9, going through here. Positive 9 has to become negative 9. Keep checking through. Negative 18 becomes positive 18. Right, so let's see. I've got 4x squared minus 2x squared minus 2x squared. Well, 4 minus 2 is 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. So there go all my x squared. So it isn't a quadratic equation. I've got negative 12x plus 12x. They inverse operations that come out to be 0. So all that I'm left with is 3x. 9 minus 9 is 0. So I'm left with 18. And then I don't want 3x, I want x. So I divide by exactly what the coefficient is on both sides. And therefore x is equal to 18 divided by 3, which is 6.